Law enforcers, have you ever come across a crime so stupid or ridiculous that you just let it slip? Story 1. I was a cop for about 7 years, and toward the last few years of that time, I found myself searching for more and more reasons not to take people to jail. I had drunks park their cars and give them rides, teenagers smoking weed, throw it out and be on their way, and realized that arresting people wasn't always the best solution to their mistake. Not everyone can go to jail, should go to jail. One night I drove through a dark parking lot and noticed a lone vehicle parked in the back and a small light inside. I assumed it would be teenagers doing their thing or someone smoking. I approached the car on foot and didn't use my flashlight until I was right up on the car. I turn on my light to see a guy naked, alone in the front seat of his car, fapping. I tell him I'm the police and he rolls down the window. I ask what he's doing and he says, "I'm jerking off." I shined my light in the back seat and saw he had a car full of groceries. I asked him about the groceries. He said, "My wife gets peed when I jerk off at home, so I came out here to do it. Do you mind?" Dumbfounded, I really don't know what to say, instead reminding him that I could arrest him for public indecency. He laughs and tells me to go ahead. Taking a step back, I thought about his situation. The dude just wanted to rub one out in peace. So I told him to hurry it up and be on his way. He thanked me and rolled up the window. Turning around, I yell back at him, "Why do you have to be completely naked?" He responds, "If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna freaking do it right." I laughed and walked away. I hope that man had a good fap. I might have some problems with police officers and more the police system, but I do like hearing about folks like you who realize that jail isn't always the right solution. And I hope that you were able to find a better job after those 7 years as a cop, and I hope that you made a positive difference in some people's lives. Sound like you made a difference in that guy's life, I guess. Story 2. Not the US. To clarify for everyone asking, this was in South Africa in the early 90s. When I was in high school, the rugby team found out I had learned how to drive, but not yet received my license. They all knew I did not drink, so one of them had the genius idea of inviting me to parties as the designated driver. We'd lost a popular kid to a drunken accident a few months earlier, so it was actually a good idea. It was a great arrangement, lots of parties, lots of girls, and all I had to do was get them home in one piece afterwards. It went great for a few weeks, until one night. The police had heard there was a big party on a farm outside of town and decided to set up a roadblock. So I came driving up to the flashing lights, car filled with 5 big drunk guys, including one passed out with his head out the window. And little scrawny me barely able to look over the steering wheel. And the inside of the car smells like a brewery. The officer takes one look at the car, asks me to step out. "Have you been drinking?" No, officer, I don't drink." Has me take a breathalyzer? 0. Looks at me. "Can I see your driver's license?" Sorry, officer, I don't have one yet. I'm getting it next week." And I point back towards the car. "But they have theirs." He looked at me, flipped his little book closed, and said, "Just take them home. Next time I see you, you better have your license." In the US, we have a huge DD support movement. You'd have probably gotten a medal or something where I'm from. Plus, I live in a really rural area where, underage driving is kind of normal as long as you have a good reason. Honestly, that's a hell of a good reason, and good on you for being a designated driver. Seriously, that is something that any of you who like to drink and party really need to employ. Never drink and drive, please. I have lost friends to that, and unfortunately, you probably will at some point in your life too. Story 3. I was actually observing the following exchange in court. A lady received a ticket for a seat cushion violation. So in my state, Florida, if you are unusually short for whatever reason, you get a restriction on your license that says you need a booster seat to drive. Makes logical sense. Here's how the exchange went. "So, Ms. Whatever, you're here for a seat cushion violation." Wait, is that even a thing? Lengthy exchange with the state attorney followed. They put white noise in so we couldn't hear it, but the judge was laughing her butt off the whole time. "Well, okay, that's a new one. How tall are you?" 5'2", Your Honor." "So you're not that short, really. Do you have a restriction on your license?" "No, Your Honor. The officer said I looked really short and he needed it." Wait, what? Case dismissed. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. My British spelling is apparently blowing people's minds. I've lived in Florida for 14 years, but was born in England. I still spell the English way is all. I live in Florida, and my wife is 5'1". I'm sharing that with her. Story 4. When I was about 17, some friends and I got involved in a scavenger hunt. It was a tie. So the tiebreaker was bring back the coolest thing you can find. We didn't get anything special, but the other group, they went to a dollar store type place that had a coin-operated horse in front of it. It was about 1 a.m., no other cars in the lot besides an 86 Nova driven by my friend. They start to dismantle this horse, eventually getting it apart, put it in the back of the Nova with the head sticking out the window, and drove off. They got about 15 feet before the two cops that were watching them the entire time pull up. They ended up having to put this horse back together, then made everyone ride it to make sure it still worked. My good friend was scared and crying riding a mechanical horse. After I heard this story, I knew the cops probably thought it was the funniest thing they had seen in a long time. I mean, I guess the punishment fits the crime, and a lesson was learned. But also, they really would have probably won that scavenger hunt if they had gotten away with it. I would have been impressed. Story 5. Not a police officer, but I witnessed it happen. I got a phone call from a police officer using my buddy's phone. Apparently my buddy, a jackbutt, got so drunk he fell out of his car in the drive-thru line at Taco Cabana. The cop told me I had 15 minutes to get there and pick up my friend. I made it in time, and the officer helped me throw my friend into the bed of my truck. He told me to take my friend home, and when he woke up, told him he was a freaking idiot. The police officer was a homicide detective in the major city in which we lived, and he said he had real crimes to solve and to stop wasting his time. I want to believe you guys literally threw him into the truck bed. Story 6. As a young patrolman in the Air Force Security Police got a call from an office referencing possible sabotage or theft of classified material. I remember thinking how this could be a huge case. I was thinking ahead about all the questions to ask and who would have to get called in. I get to the office, get all the basic identifying information from the complaint/victim. I asked her what made her think there was sabotage going on, and she told me that the last couple days she's been coming to work and data on her 2.5-inch discs, yes, I'm old enough for those, has been erased. So I ask her where she stores her disc. She turns to her whiteboard and, crap you not, pulls her disc out from under a magnet. I actually stood there blank-faced in awe as this woman who developed complex systems for the military held this disc out to me. All I could say was, "Ma'am, do you know what happens to a magnetic storage device when you expose it to a magnetic field generated by, say, a magnet? Welcome to my life. Welcome to technical support. This is typical customer behavior, and then they expect you to fix it. Head desk." This is why I have never tried to go for a career in technical support, IT, whatever. And this is why I also never let family or friends know that I know a decent bit about computers. I'm not great, but I've built my own computers before, so I know enough. But if they knew, they would call me and ask me questions about stuff like this, and I can't. I won't. Story 7. My friend has been learning to become a tattoo artist and asked me if I wanted one. To repay his kindness, I picked up a 30-pack and some tequila. After about 3 hours of him digging in with the gun and most of the beers and booze gone, we came up with the plan. We were going to go to the city and score some dope. Didn't take long, and we accomplished just that. We found a nice, quiet, dimly lit parking lot to pull in and get high. We broke out the gear and started. He got his ready faster and got it done. I was out of practice and fumbled around for a bit. Just then, someone knocked on the window. It's the cops. We rolled down the window and they asked if we knew where we were. Before we can say anything, the cops said, "This is a friggin' police station parking lot. Are you frickin' dumb?" They took the dope and sent us on our way. And I now have 13 years clean thanks to that cop. That story was great in more ways than one. Thanks for sharing. Story 8. There was this guy where I used to live who would walk around smiling strangely and approaching people trying to shake their hands. As soon as he got to hold their hand, he would try to kiss them. A friend of mine naively accepted his handshake and literally bent over backward trying to avoid the kiss. A couple of churches in the area had this thing at the end of their services where everyone would shake hands so this guy would show up to reap the harvest. The cops were called on him a few times, but to my knowledge, they never arrested him, but just drove him far away from the area and dropped him off and made him walk all the way back. Reap the harvest. Very compelling image of the dude drooling over the thought of so many hands to kiss. Story 9. A couple of friends and I were driving down the highway to a friend's house. We took 2 cars because of the amount of people. A girl in my car has the good idea to moon the other car of people. She rolls down the window and just sticks her whole bum out. We would later find out her vulva was in full view as well. This is going on for about a minute until we suddenly realize there is an officer right behind us tailgating. He has clearly seen what is going on, and everyone in the car is flipping out until we realize he's laughing. Move the car over a lane and then jets right past us. Pretty hard for a chick to show her butt without showing her V too, if it's a proper moon anyway. Ah yes, the flower that blooms only in the moonlight. I hate myself. I don't know what I'm going for. I'm trying to be even more off the cuff with my comments, and as you can tell, I'm a little better if I take the time to think them through first. Unlike the people who are doing this stuff, like sticking their butt out the window. They did not think anything through. Story 10. I was working the metal detector at our court. I tell people to remove anything metal from their pockets and place it on the table before walking through. This one guy pulls out his plastic bag of weed and lays it out in front of me. I did a triple take to make sure it was what I thought it was. I told him that marijuana is not metallic and that he should keep that in his pocket next time. Since he already had some legal issues pending in court, I decided not to pile anything else on him. I confiscated the bag and signed it into evidence to be destroyed. No charges. I see the guy around all the time now. Bringing weed to court is just so metal, it would probably set off the metal detectors anyways. Story 11. I overheard this one last night as I was sitting near two Indiana cops at Panda Express. So this lady had a warrant for an unpaid ticket and missed court date. I bring her in and it turns out that her address is wrong and she never got the court summons. The original ticket was for possession of a black bass under 14 inches, and since she had missed the court summons, it was now on her record. So if she goes to apply for a job and they inevitably ask her, "Do you have any criminal history?" she's obligated to say yes. Now imagine if the employer asks why. I caught a small fish. Oh my God. If I was that lady, I would bring that up every opportunity I possibly could. I would wear that criminal record with a badge of honor. I would want it framed if I could. Story 12. My ex-fiancé was a cop for a redneck town where the people didn't have much money. He was called to the grocery store where a little girl, about 9, was being detained in the manager's office for stealing a box of tampons. He said she had tears and snot everywhere and her pants had obvious blood stains all over the front. My ex then bought a box she was trying to steal along with 3 more boxes, some food, and milk. He then drove her home to a trailer that was falling apart. It wasn't so much the crime that was ridiculous, but more than the manager's reaction. I guess when my ex came in, the manager was just screaming at this terrified 9-year-old. I've been laughing at some of the other comments. This one made me really sad. Story 13. I was the lucky one once, not charged by a cop. In college, my friend had a massive house party. I woke up the next morning face down in a puddle of drool in the bed of my truck. Went inside and found out the cops had busted the party and everyone got underage tickets, over 30 people, except for me. Not sure if they took pity on me or never saw me, but they had my truck boxed in with squad cars. The lines on my face from the ribs of my bed liner took 2 days to go away. They never saw you. When a cop sees a college-age kid totally passed out and not very responsive due to alcohol, you wake up in the hospital. Story 14. Had to prosecute a case where 2 teens, boy and girl, stole a pregnancy test and a box of condoms from a drugstore. Recommended dismissing the case on some community service. Told the judge I was doing so because it was a case of the 2 youngsters trying to close the barn door after the horse had already left. Also recommended that the community service be done in a latex-free environment because the condoms were lambskin. Judge fought an amazing struggle not to laugh. He lost. Story 15. My grandfather was pulled over by the Bay Police for breaking the speed limit on a wave runner without a license. The cop said he had never seen anyone so old speeding before and let him go. I like his logic. We need to see weirder groups of people do illegal stuff, so at least there would be at least one record of it in history. The idea that cops would not arrest really old people for doing illegal stuff is really just going to encourage me to do really illegal stuff if I live to be an old man. I swear, if any of you see me in my 80s, I will probably be on some illegal drugs, speeding down the freeway, and I don't know, probably tearing the tags off of mattresses. I don't want to do illegal stuff. I'm too boring. Story 16. I frequently, or did when I was in uniform, let impaired care or control slide. If I found someone sleeping in the back seat of their parked car after drinking, it demonstrated to me a decision to not drink and drive. I'd often take keys or drive someone home, but arresting them just seemed wrong. Story 17. Prosecutors here. I came across one such domestic violence case during intake. The facts. Husband and wife arguing. Husband grabs wife's keys and throws them in the yard. Husband is charged by beat cop with criminal tampering, and technically, husband was guilty under the law. I have never written a faster motion to dismiss. Story 18. My grandpa was a police officer in Houston in the 60s and 70s. He told me of this time where a lady called to report some dynamite she found in her own garage. When he arrived on the scene, he realized that said dynamite was actually a candle. So, being real careful, he took a lighter from his pocket and lit it to prove it wasn't dangerous. The lady who called bolted from the house running from a lit candle. I mean, wouldn't it be made of wax? I mean, lady, come on. You could have just, cut into a little bit or just snapped it in half or something. Also, I've seen enough cartoons and movies. When you light the dynamite stick, it's like psss. When you light a candle, it's like candle sound. Story 19. Pulled a guy over last night whose license expired. Not suspended or revoked or denied, just expired. Dumbfounded me. How do you go 5 years with an expired license? Told him to get it renewed. The thoughtless lapse wasn't worth a trip to see the judge and the fines. Sent him on his way. Thoughtless lapse wasn't worth a trip to see the judge and the fines. Sent him on his way. That's how he got away with it for 5 years. Story 20. My good friend is a police officer in a really bad section of North Philly, and he and his partner once got called to a house by a man because the prostitute he hired bit him and then wouldn't leave. They ended up driving her home, but didn't arrest either of them. That sounds like the start of a zombie movie. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.